All right, welcome to session three on Start with Why. So, as we're diving in today, particularly, I have a lot of action items for you. So, I would recommend as we get to those action items to either pause, write them down, take a screenshot, and really utilize these as an opportunity, not just to reflect, but to really truly implement. I say this over and over again. Like, I love book studies because it's so much more than just reading the book. I read one of the chapters and then I listened to the audio book version of it and heard something slightly different, and then it kept playing, and you get into things, and it's really easy to just very passively hear the information. And if we continue to just hear the information, just read the information, there's a difference of like knowing it and then like being able to implement it. It's not going to make much of an impact in just knowing. It makes an impact in our businesses when we actually start to implement that. So that's why we've stretched this over a 6 week study so that we have the time to implement it. And just words of wisdom, not a requirement, but not only scheduling the time to read the book and scheduling the time to be here in the discussion, but then scheduling the time to then work on the homework. I would really truly recommend like 30 minutes a day just dedicated to this and continuing to make that a practice as we dive into more books or you dive into more books. Uh, because if you really want to grow your business, you're going to have to step into a space that you haven't been before. And to step into a space that you haven't been before requires not just reading it once or hearing it once or talking about it once. It's going to really require like touching it each and every day to integrate it into your business. So it's so much more than just a book study. I never do like, let's just talk about it and then leave it there. When we start doing like business book studies are intended for so much more. So ask you like, why do you want to read a book? Why do you want to read this book? Why do you want to apply this to your business? Um, as we dive into today, so you'll see at the beginning of the book, we're on part three, and the title is Leaders Need a Following. And we've got two chapters that we're going to cover. We are going to slightly tap into part four just a little bit today as well. Of course, it's holistic, it all integrates, and we need to keep remembering like what we're doing. Then we'll have part five, which is the biggest challenge is success. I don't know if you could agree. And then part six is to keep deeper diving into why. And I say that like you might be like, oh gosh, this is deep. This is hard stuff to do. To keep in mind that you're going to keep revisiting this. This is like the third time I've read this book, and my business has shifted since the second time, since definitely since the first time that I've read it. And you need to continuously tap into your why. It's not a once a year thing. It's not a new year thing. It's not a quarter thing. I mean, that's a daily thing to continue to tap into. Your why, as he talks about in here, is so much more than he talks about I remember the last name Langley because that's actually one of our family names. That Langley was wanting to build the first airplane because he really wanted that recognition. He really wanted the success. He really wanted it for him. And the Wright brothers had so much more. They had so much more than they were wanting it for others. They were wanting for the bigger impact, the change that was going to be made. And I say that because it's so important that we really sit down and this is in office hours or having these discussions, because sometimes it's easier for someone else to ask us and then it just kind of comes out of our mouth and then we can write it down afterwards. But it's in discussion that this will continue to come out of you and pull out of you as you inundate yourself with people in similar industry and people in business. You're going to hear their whys. It's going to inspire you. So, doing your market research is definitely a key aspect in saying, like, why am I different? Why am I different than how other people are doing it? What are the whys? And getting a little philosophical. And as I mentioned, we're going to deeper dive into story brand. And so I really recommend you like hash this out with yourself as much as you possibly can, because it'll make the story brand even easier once we get there. But for example, it's like, I just want gifts. And the reason why I started my business is different than, right? Like you started your business because of COVID. I'm just using Tiffany as an example. But why your business exists and the bigger reach and the bigger impact. It's gonna sound fluffy a little bit. It's going to um, get a little sappy, and we want that aspect, especially if that pertains to your industry. Um, we need to say, like, what's the point of existence for your business? Like there's Spotify, there's iTunes, there's you could listen to your music on YouTube. You could like all these things, but each one of them has a different vibe, and each one of them has a different why for for how they're existing. As he talks about in these chapters, that there's going to be some people that are just going to buy from you just because they're buying from you. But how you're going to grow your business, that tipping point is going to be really like why you exist in the market and the space that you're taking up. And it's so important that you take up space and that you allow yourself to take up space. So, reviewing from last week or last session, we talked about creating that customer journey map. And we even had a whole session on creating your customer journey map, aside from the actual book study. So making sure that you review that. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot to do that, that's okay. Um, but I do recommend taking the time, and that's why I like doing these live sessions so that it's holding the space for you. Uh, but again, you can mark time on your schedule. If the 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time doesn't work for you, then mark the time on your calendar. Maybe it's at 7 p.m. or 10 p.m., whatever it might be for you, but to mark that time and stay consistent with it. As always, with our sessions, our goal is to go over some concepts, actionable takeaways, and of course, discussion as well. So, the quote to get us started today is that leadership isn't about power. And I know in the corporate world, particularly, that is often how it's seen as like, oh, I'm in a leadership role. And there is power and responsibility that comes with leadership, but that leadership is not power. So it's kind of like a duck is a bird, but not all birds are ducks kind of scenario. That this is about inspiring trust and loyalty, because there is a difference of someone who's leading and someone who's been appointed to be a leader, right? And as a business owner, as we come in and we take up space, we are not being appointed, right? No one's coming in and saying, oh, look, here's Kita. She's the queen of this. And everyone pay attention to her and you'll have to do what she says. That's different when we like get put into a managerial spot. We have this amazing job, duty, and challenge of we have to position in ourselves in the market as leaders. And we do that first and foremost by leading by example. So asking yourself to start with, do you practice what you preach? Are you looking at your business like you or your life or whatever industry you're in? Are you looking at how you're doing things based on what you would recommend for a client to do? And this is something I constantly have to come back to. because anytime I stray too far from that is when things start to crumble, when things start to feel off, when we start to feel stuck, when we're like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like all these feelings will come up. And so we have to be the leader of ourselves, yes, but we really have to lead by example too. And as we've been discussing, like telling those stories, showcasing your values, uh, making that first and foremost on social media so that people are building a trust with you and this brand that you're creating. You're going to have your own brand, and your business can also have its own brand. Hopefully, those are very much in alignment, but allowing you to lead by example. How are you showcasing your values through your marketing and how you're showing up in business and or maybe it's around the city or in groups, but noticing all those places. So, um, noticing, I guess, a discussion point here would be who's someone or a brand that you admire? And I know that's a struggle for me sometimes to think up off the top of my head, but if I was to go through my LinkedIn or my Facebook and saw a couple people show up in my feed and say, are these people I trust? Is this a brand I trust? Is this a brand I've purchased from and I continue to purchase from? Right? Like I'm not a Harley Davidson person, but he uses them in the book a lot. And I see people trusting that brand. Tide is another one that I often think of. Like people get really stuck on their laundry detergents. It might be Target is your brand. Some people love Walmart. Like people have their brands that they trust. And asking, what's the difference between Target and Walmart, right? What's the difference between a Harley Davidson and a sports bike? Um, and really getting down to those, like what's inspiring them. All right. So leaders need a following, right? Like we have to have people to lead to be a leader. Uh, and I do say that really starts with us. It really starts with like, are you trusting yourself? Are you someone who you would follow? Are you stepping up and taking the initiative and looking at it from that point of view? So think of a business you are loyal to, and why do you keep coming back? For most of us, it's consistency, right? You're like, I know that the thing I tried the first time, and when I tried it the second time, I got the same result. So is it that consistency? Is it because of the values? Is it because maybe like you just like Target and because that brand's at Target? So it was like trust by default proximity, which is a real thing. That's why podcasts and things like that work because you're in the vicinity of someone else that they trust. So people follow those who share their beliefs, not just those who offer great products. They went on about one of the TV, I can't think of the name, not Roku, but it's TiVo or something like that, and how they checked all the boxes of being the most amazing product. But the company did not speak to why it was a good fit for their ideal customer. They didn't identify their ideal customer within their marketing. They didn't say like, "Hey, you're busy and you need to record these things." Like they didn't go into that. They just led with, "We're the best product." Because people say, "What's in it for me?" It's just the innate thing that people do when they see a great product. They say, "What's in it for me?" And if you can tell them what's in it for them and why it's great for them and why they need your thing, uh, and how your mission aligns with their mission. They talked about Southwest and or Southeast, the airline, and you all know what I'm talking about. The airline and how they said, hey, there's all these people over here. There's 85%. We don't want to compete with the major airlines. We want to compete with the buses and the cars and for the average person. And we're just going to have set prices and we're going to talk about how we're on a mission for the people. How are you doing that? And first and foremost, right? Like we need to know what we're selling. We need to know what we're selling and why it's for them and really taking a stance in the market to take up space in the market to say, I'm here for these people, not for everyone, to release any people pleasing, to release any like, I need everything, I need any sales, I need anyone, like releasing the scarcity and allowing yourself to take up space. So, one of these action items here, you'll start to see these being dropped, is identify one way you can increase trust with customers this week. So, it could be better communication, it could be consistent service, it could be transparency, uh, and and brainstorm some ideas. There's never a wrong answer. For example, if you offer service, be clear about expectations, process, and deliverables to remove uncertainty. So I think I've mentioned this to you all before in some other training, but one of the common questions I used to get in hypnotherapy a lot is, am I going to remember what you're saying? Like, are you going to put me under a trance and I'm not going to remember anything? And that was a real concern for a lot of people. So I started being really upfront and just weaving that into my marketing to say, like, you'll remember everything. You're completely awake the entire time. You're just relaxed. And letting people hear that so that it's reducing that barrier. All right. People do business with those they trust. Trust is built through clarity, discipline, and consistency, as we've talked about. The discussion is what is one way that your business builds or could build trust with your customers? So you might be doing something really well already. And if you're not sure, think back to things that like clients have said, I really enjoy this. I'm so glad you do this. And making sure that you have that noted because that might be something that you highlight more. But also noticing like how could you build more trust? And some actionable steps to help with that is identify your top five most engaged clients or customers. And I say most engaged, these are people who um, maybe they're a paying customer and they're showing up to your events. Maybe they're a paying customer and they're liking on your posts or they're referring people to you. And if you don't have that, it's okay. But for those who do, what do they love about your business? We need to know these things. We need to get curious about these things. We need to ask people these things if they are not telling us. So, double down, offer them exclusive perks, personal outreach, or special insights to deepen their loyalty. You could, and people who are following you and raving and being super fans, you could offer them, say, like, hey, if you get one person to sign up for my next workshop, I'll give you your ticket for free. Or if you get two people to sign up for the next workshop, I'll give you your ticket for free. Maybe they did get three or four people signed up for the workshop, and you could say, like, hey, I want to offer you the next workshop for free. We don't want to refund them money back if they've already paid, but you could say, I'll offer you the next one. Or if they didn't buy their ticket, offer them a ticket for free because we want to incentivize, reward that like positive reinforcement. That's what I was getting for. Positive reinforcement for the behavior that they have. All right. So making decisions. So how do we make decisions in our business? Oh, I get this question a lot, like not knowing what to choose, not knowing which direction to go into. And this is a great checkpoint and anchor for you to, if you have these things written out, if you have all of your why, it'll help you with your pricing, it'll help you with your hiring, it'll help you with partnerships, it'll help you with marketing. And so when I say like this is the foundation and why we're doing this book first, is because this will really set you up for so much success. And And if you're like, like I know I've read this, like I'm trying to reread this, like reread it, reread it, rewatch these things, get really clear about this. It's so, so important for you to be able to just easily talk about the stories and the why and what you're for. And again, I encourage all of you all go live every day. Talk about this stuff every single day on your lives. Because the more you're repeating it, the more it's ingraining in you. The more you're repeating it outwards, the more they're hearing it. It's going to be ingrained in them. We want them to know your business just as much as you know your business when it comes to these things. So, your why should be the filter for pricing, branding, and partnerships. The next time you make a marketing, pricing, or customer service decision, ask yourself, does it align with my why? Would my ideal customer trust me more or less because of this decision? If your why is empowering entrepreneurs, would offering steep discounts or low pricing attract the right client, or would it devalue your service? So this is something that I realized for me, like I was charging way too little and doing way too much on some of my marketing services, and it was not helping my clients. It was not helping me. And ultimately, like I needed them to be invested in their marketing and like show up and know how to implement it. And they wanted to just throw a little bit of money at something and get social media and think that social media was going to fix all their problems. And that was not the case. Like they needed to do some real business development, and for me to just gift them business development on top of an already low price, again, was not fair to either one of us. And then they weren't taking it very serious either. So it was doing both of us a disservice. And I said, "Yeah, this isn't aligning with what I'm doing. This isn't aligning with my mission." That I'm more than happy to work through all of these processes with them. But honestly, if you're paying, let's say, $300 a month to work on something really big, it wasn't enough of a stake in it for them to say, I'm serious, for them to actually show up and do the work. And I get into more on that in the money side and how actually charging is doing service for your clients, depending on what it is, of course, when it comes to coaching and consulting. So, the question here is, can you think of a business decision that you made or did or didn't align with your why, right? Is there something that you're doing right now in your business that's not aligning with your why, and maybe you have to let go of it? And a big component of when you're praying for something, asking for something, manifesting something, and if you haven't made the space for that thing to come in, the universe or whatever term you use, what might clear that path for you. It's a little bit more painful for that to happen, or you can release it and let it go. And it's a little less painful that way. Not saying it's easier, but it's definitely a little less painful. And this kind of, well, kind of, this leads into the next point of, instead of trying again to help people, and not saying helping people's bad, but instead of trying to people please and just take whatever's coming your way, the more specific you can get about who you want to serve and why you're the best fit for them, the less likely you are to get the customers, employees, partners that aren't a right fit for you. So sometimes we can start with, who do I not want to work with? What do I not want to do? And some of that comes from experience. I'm not going to lie. Like just getting out there and taking action and figuring it out, because just sitting and staring at it, you're not going to figure it out. Just going out there and doing it and learning the lessons. I've seen this happen multiple times with clients where I kept trying to tell them and kept trying to tell them, and they wanted to do it their way. And sure enough, they just had to learn the lesson the hard way. And then they finally got what I was trying to teach them earlier on. So, stories are a great way to help reinforce what you're trying to teach them, but focusing on who who you want to work on. So customers, employees don't just listen to what you say, they watch what you do, reinforcing what we were talking about earlier. List 3 ways your brand delivers on its promise every single day. What's your brand promise? So, for an example, is if your why is helping busy moms reduce stress, do you make your booking process effortless? Are you offering flexible support or follow-ups? Are you communicating in a calm, reassuring tone? So, knowing again who your target audience is and like what ways are you going to need to go out of your way a little bit more? Because that's just part of working with that group of people. Right? Like I work with a lot of busy people who I have to remind. Um, and for me, I don't want to be in that space anymore. So I'm switching up who my audience is and reassessing that. So, discussion question. Are you spending time trying to convince your people who don't align with you and your business values? Or are you speaking to the people? Kita and I were talking about this yesterday. So, during the goddess workshop, and they're going to be taking pictures. So they make their own like tarot card looking thing or oracle card. So, values of those people are going to be that they're okay with tarot cards and oracle cards. Anybody who's not okay with that is probably not going to be there. So, we don't need to educate them on what it is. We need to go after the people who would love to have their own tarot or oracle card. And so maybe putting up a little bit more tarot and oracle card based things and showcasing like changing themselves into their own personal oracle card. Like showcasing that is going to be an attention grabbing so that they are not curious like what is it that we're doing, because if you're not displaying in graphics of what it is that's going to happen, right, like of what it is that they're going to value, then they're not going to understand what's going on. So great brands, and this is kind of hitting on section 4 just a little bit, but I want you to start thinking about this. Great brands communicate why first, then how, then what. So we've talked about this. Review your website, social media, and email signature today. Does it clearly communicate why you do what you do, who you help, and how you're different? If not, rewrite your bio or tagline using I help achieve by because or like there's a little template for you right there. Make sure you can fill in that blank. Uh, Another point, and we've got 2 more after this one. Movements don't happen because one leader. They happen because the first followers. So getting those people that are coming into your business, those initial people. Create a simple way for your best customers to engage more deeply. Maybe it's a VIP email list, a community group, referral rewards. And instead of running ads for cold leads, send a personal message to 5 customers and ask how you can support them more, which is one of the techniques that we do within our Magic Mondays. Strong brands repel as much as they attract. So, it's such a beautiful quote because it really is true. And this is, I think, the biggest reason why so many people fear taking up space is because people are going to have a strong reaction to you. And that's okay. You want the people who go, wow, she's clearly not for me, or he's clearly not for me. And then the people that go, wow, she is exactly for me, right? So write down who the people who are not your clients, they are the wrong people, and then write down who the right people are and just continue to gain more and more clarity around that. Make sure that your messaging, pricing, and marketing reflect that. So if you offer a premium high touch service, don't use messaging like affordable and budget friendly, right? That's where I'm getting away from. I don't want to be affordable and budget friendly. Of course, I have the Business Growth Lab, but even the Business Growth Lab will be continuing to grow, pivot, and adjust. Um, but really, this is kind of like a try it out, get the support you need. And that's the language that I'm focusing on, not affordable, not budget friendly. So you get to choose the words and then choose the words that you don't want to be associated with too. Customers and employees commit when they believe in what you stand for. So write your one sentence brand belief statement. So I believe women entrepreneurs deserve to be paid what they're worth without burnout. Yes, right. I believe small businesses should have corporate level marketing without corporate budgets. That's an example. That was kind of what I used to have. Uh, Post on your website, social media, email signature to reinforce your mission. Let everyone know it, like you're screaming it from the rooftops. And then here's our homework for today. So you have lots of action steps to consider. Those are kind of your bonuses. Here's the main thing that I want you to focus on. If you're like, that's all a lot, I don't know where to start, start here. One, write down your why statement in a clear one sentence. Two, review your last five business decisions and ask yourself, do they align with your why? Three, identify your top five most engaged customers and how you can deepen their loyalty, as we've discussed. And number four, audit your messaging. Make sure your website, emails, marketing clearly reflect your why. So, again, start here if you'd like to kind of ripple out into some of the things we've discussed, which we've deeper dived into each one of those. Um, that those are there for you. But to really make sure that you're reading the book, it is totally fine to listen to the lesson and then read it. I would recommend reading it because, again, you need to hear it, you need to reinforce it. You can listen to the audiobook, which is free on Spotify right now, and really show up and just immerse yourself in your business and what you're creating because you're the only one that can do that for yourself. All right. I am sending you all so much love. We will cover four and dive into five next week. Again, we kind of touched on four. Four is kind of getting pulled into the two of those. And I really look forward to hearing your whys. But also don't not show up just because you're still not sure. Show up because you need the support. Get the help. Make it happen. All right. I will see you all next time.